Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second LUG Linux user group for May 2025. I am your host, Matt, and I'm joined by all these fine people. So we're going to have a fantastic little conversation tonight. We're going to talk about learning Linux, finding support, and all that stuff. I'm sure, as per usual, we will not meander off of the topic at all. I mean, we've never done that before. So we will have a good chat. So why don't we go ahead and jump in? So let's just, in general, and I think I'm going to know the answer to this question, but where's the best place to get Linux support? If you had to name one place, go ahead.
IRC.
IRC. That's not the answer that I was expecting. Um, okay. Arch Penguin.
Yeah, that'd be the Arch Wiki.
Yeah, that's the one that I was expecting. Even like the Debian guys go like, "Oh yeah, that's some good
For
documentation
real.
there."
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Drew.
That would be the Discord channel at thelinuxcast.org.
Yeah, don't trust those fools. They'll lead you astray. So I guess we can actually let's just start with the Arch Wiki a little bit. So do you guys think that the Arch Wiki is like the premier source of support on the internet? Because it's interesting because it is for Arch. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would definitely say the Arch Wiki is probably the first stop, and maybe the second stop be like a Gentoo Wiki if they don't have it. I only mentioned IRC because that's like for finer details, more nitpicky stuff, kind of deeper in the weeds.
I would agree with the IRC thing if it was easier to set up. You know what I mean? It's just for like a new user, it's not an easy thing to figure out how to do because back in the day everybody knew how to do it. These days you have to go. I mean, every time I have to join a channel, I have to go look and see how to do it. Even though I've done it multiple times, it's just not an easy thing to do. D Dubs.
Yeah, I agree. ArchWiki is a fantastic reference. What I find hilarious though is that so many people will quote or people will post responses from like Reddit. You know, it's kind of funny, but
So have you found that Reddit's not a good place for support?
well, the problem is like anything. You ask 10 people to get 10 different opinions. You're not necessarily getting a qualified answer. You're getting, well, this worked for me, or this is what I did, and a lot of times it will be fine, but not necessarily. And also the problem I see is most people do not post their question or issue clearly with sufficient detail that makes it very easy for someone just to answer their question. You know, I still see, oh, I get some error. Well, then I'll give you some answer. Begins with two letters, begins with an F.
Yeah.
you know, so it's just interesting. That's all that I see. A lot of people will reply and say, "Oh, we'll go to this Reddit post," or "I searched Reddit," or where the thought of searching a wiki, and of course I do a lot with Hyperland. I see it in Hyperland a lot. How do I do this? How do I do that? Well, here's the wiki. Here's all you have to do is go to the wiki page and do a web search. Control F, and you'll find it. So getting people to actually read the documentation is to be honestly the bigger difficulty.
Well, I think one of the reasons why Reddit is so like prevalent, and same thing with kind of like Stack Overflow, is that when you Google something, the first thing that there's right there at the top, Reddit. Um,
Yeah,
Actually, I don't know
exactly.
that I've ever seen. Has anybody here actually ever seen an Arch wiki like result in Google? Like, is that even a thing? Like, I don't think I've ever seen it. So, Hibdad, go ahead. You're nodding your head.
Yeah, I've did searches for different problems I've had, and since I'm running Arch, and a lot of times the thing is when you do searching for a solution with Arch, you have to make sure you put Arch in the question, and then it'll come up. Most of the time, it comes up at least second. I stay away from Reddit because they're too busy doing flame wars about helping somebody. Um, but the IRC thing, I'm like, IRC is the easiest thing in the world to set up. Install HexChat, go to their server list, go to the server. It automatically pops up in the system window how to access their website, so you can register your nickname, your IRC channel, etc. I mean, it's easy.
HipDad, you just listed like 10 steps to join an IRC channel when joining Discord is one step. So in comparison,
Not the first time.
the first time, yeah, just give them an email address. You have an account. Congratulations. That's the first step. Where people are used to the idea of giving an account for something before they set it up. Whereas with IRC, you have to know the room first and then get an account. You have to figure out the whole nickname registration thing. I mean, got to remember, I haven't set it up in like 6 or 7 years, but still, the whole idea of registering a nickname is, all these things. And back when I did it, I didn't do hex chat or whatever you're talking about. I had to basically send it to the nickname server or whatever it is to give you a nickname.
Right.
And,
Right.
like, nobody knows what that means. And you got to remember, Dad, you're not the people I'm talking about. I'm talking about the brand new people who've just started using Linux. They're not going to know how to do it. You don't have to join an IRC channel to get help on Windows. You just go to the Microsoft forums. You know what I mean?
Oh, I used to be on IRC on Windows too, so hey. But I'm the elderly of the group, so
I didn't say it out loud.
I know, but you reference it from time to time.
I do. It's all
on your streams and everything.
Yeah, well,
you got to say it. You got to say old at least twice on your streams.
That's true. Gnome, go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely agree with HipDad. The older generation, we probably know what IRC is, but these new kids, you say IRC, and they're like, "What is that? Like internet relay chat? You mean Discord?" Like, no, IRC. Also, what D-Dubs was saying. Also, okay, wait, back another. I would like to also agree with HipDad and say, if you do prefix your search in Google, say like ArchWiki Pulse Audio or ArchWiki Pipewire or ArchWiki Networking, it'll give you the ArchWiki for that article. But if you don't prefix ArchWiki in your search, I've never seen that pop up.
Yeah. So
and as to what D-Dubs was saying about giving enough details in your question, there's kind of a fine line there, because once, I feel, in my experience anyways, once a person has enough knowledge to ask a really good question and give you all those details, they probably don't need your help anymore, because they're able to dive into the system deep enough and they know where to find this stuff. It's kind of a fine line, like, right? It's 6 in one hand sort of thing.
Yeah. Drew?
Okay, here we're about to go down the rabbit hole.
We like rabbit holes.
Large language models being available for us to actually get tech support. I did not read that, but I will. I saw the word. I saw the 2 letters A and I. And
how do you think AI plays a role in getting support? That's literally what I just wrote down. Yeah, we're thinking of the same thing. So, go ahead.
Well, maybe not directly by the end user using AI, but I do know of a couple MSP, managed service providers, and not like the individual companies, but the umbrella company that provides the services to MSPs. They are using AI on their back end to solve problems for the MSP itself. So if a client or anybody who calls up their tech support may be using AI on the back end and asking their LLM that's been trained inside their platform, "Hey, what's going on with this?" And gives them 2 or 3 outcomes for the situation. So the end user may have no idea they're using AI, but the actual service rep is.
GNU to Linux, go ahead.
Yeah, once you get a little experience with Linux, I think you learn pretty quickly if you use a search engine and put describe the problem you're having and append your distro or your OS to the question, you'll get pretty good answers. For example, I'm on Linux Mint, so I'll usually put the question Linux Mint, and I'll usually get lots of Reddit answers, which are relevant. And then the Linux Mint forum is excellent. They're pretty helpful over there, and you can usually get good answers there. Occasionally, it'll send me elsewhere, but yeah, name your problem, and your distro might have specific resources or a community that could help you. And old school forums, rather than chats or Discord, are still there for for some distros. So they're a great resource.
Yeah. D-dubs?
Yes, it's actually kind of funny because in support, there's level 1, 2, 3, and 4 is typically the step before engineering. And even there, we used to use Google and other search engines. We used to call it, L5, L5 Google. But today, that's just been replaced with AI, where AI versus a standard search can often sort of better understand what you're looking for, even when you don't. That's the funny thing about AI, is sometimes you can pose it the issue with more detail, and it will find more relevant answers. That's so it's just kind of funny. But using AI in the back end has been something that's been around since the internet.
What I find interesting is the question of how, and we kind of talked about this on the last lug, I think, but the idea that AI eventually becomes more front facing for support. Like
Oh, it already is.
someone creates you guys know, you go to a website or whatever, and there's like that little chat now button at the bottom right hand corner. Like, imagine the Arch Wiki had one of those. You know what I mean? You could just ask the question. Like, there's not actually a person there, but it goes through. It'll help you sift through the information. If it can't find anything, it would point you towards the forum. It'd be interesting to have something like that. But I don't think I don't think like Arch is ever going to do that. But it'd be very interesting to see how that type of thing would be interfaced. DW, you have more to say?
Just briefly, the companies and stuff are already doing that AI right up on the front end.
Mm.
There's a lot of service companies where you could do your RA for your bad drive or whatever, and it will actually walk you through the triage process. There's just so much of that going on, even hospitals, and if you go to Amazon when you want to do a refund, or you're first dealing with an AI, and
Oh,
often you can get the entire process done and never talk to a human.
yeah.
In fact, I was trying the other day to get to my pharmacist, and I literally almost had to yell at it. She was like, "No, I need to speak to a human because you can't help me. You're limited
The
response to
scary
what I
response.
need."
The scary response there is, "What do you mean, D-dubs? I am a human."
It's like, no, you're not.
Yeah. Goose, go ahead.
Hey, fellas, long time no see.
Welcome.
One thing I'm going to add too is, though, like the Linux from 2005 is not the Linux from, or it is the way it is right now. A lot of things have become easier. You're not if you buy systems that are specifically designed with Linux in mind, let's say like framework or something, you're not searching for those basic things that you need to just operate your system, right? Like you're not fighting with the sound drivers, and you don't have to worry about your hardware is the correct hardware, and it'll come packaged with the software that you need for your video drivers and all those nice things. So it makes I guess, you know, like with the Pop OS, like they're driving towards more desktop user environment things. It really makes the whole experience easier. But like you guys were saying before too, the AI drive, I'm even seeing it internally in my company where we're taking our internal knowledge bases and then sticking an AI in front of it. And hey, we're getting the knowledge that we need. I think the AI is just the next level in proliferation of knowledge, right? So we started with text, then we went to video, right? And the next major step is the AI. It's great, honestly, I think.
I mean, obviously, I mean, we are kind of delving deep into. You're right, Drew. This was a rabbit hole. but we know that the next stage of search is going to be much different than it has been for basically our internet generation, like the last 25 years or so, right? It's been Google, and you do a search, you get a list of results. Where now it's going to be much more conversational. You're going to be asking a question, and you're going to give it information and all this stuff, and that's going to play a big role in how support changes, not only in general, but in in our more localized sphere, like the Linux stuff, which is what we were supposed to be talking about. Gnome, go ahead. You're still muted, bud.
I pushed the hand button instead of the mute button. Don't quote me on this one, but I think the Arch somewhere, they used to have a link for an IRC web chat inside. And would you just click the link and it would connect to the IRC server and drop you inside the support channel?
I think I remember
From a
that.
web
It was like it was like embedded in like a whatever the precursor to iframe was.
Yeah, I think. I don't know if they still have it or not. And on the AI topic, I actually tried just today, actually. I was troubleshooting, I'm setting up a Waza instance, and I was trying to figure out how to send external SMTP notifications to my mail server and I didn't want to use the internal relay. All the material on the Waza documentation says to install postfix and use your local relay. Blah. I wanted to just use an external SMTP. So I asked Google. I said Waza external SMTP settings, and it gave me what should go inside the config file. So I dropped them in there, and lo and behold, the settings were deprecated, and they don't use them anymore. The instance wouldn't even start up because it was unknown flags. So it was kind of helpful, but it steered me down a rabbit hole because it didn't help at all. It just wasted a good hour of my day.
Yeah, it definitely gives you some stinky results sometimes. D-Dubs, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry to keep adding to this,
That's fine.
rat hole. It just reminded me that where I last worked, they had actually started putting AI into their Salesforce instance. So it was trying to like suggest like next steps and things to do and so forth. And it was so often kind of like what Norm was just talking about is it was just bad, and they kept trying to say, well, you got to mark if it's good or did it help you? I mean, literally, when you close the case, you had to say, basically, did the AI help you or not? And no one I know ever had an answer for that to yes.
It's the
So it's a lot
technology
of
equivalent of asking. Sorry, it's the technology equivalent of asking for a survey response after you're done talking to someone.
Mm. Well, yeah, I mean, and I get the reason why they were doing that, to try to see is this actually working and helping, because otherwise it's very difficult to measure it. But the thing is they invested a ton into it, but the quality of the language models, like the quick Google search stuff, I find their Bard and stuff is kind of usually a little dated. I was talking about it earlier, like the Sonnet and the Grok. Um, I believe the new GPT-4 you got to pay for is one of the better ones as well, but I'm not going to pay for it. So yeah, it's there is quite a bit of a difference in the quality of these different language models. But the point being is that a lot of people are using them because I see that on people asking me for help. I've been on like ChatGPT all day long, or I use ChatGPT, and unfortunately, it can many times take you down that rat hole of outdated info.
Yeah, Hibdad.
Well, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, there was these things called books.
We don't know what you're talking about, man.
They
Huh?
well, this is a 1993 version,
How
and
do you spell that?
a lot of the commands are still used today. But yeah, but when I started out on Linux in the 90s, it was mainly searching for books at computer shows, and then IRC, of course. I would hook up with some people that knew Linux, and then I'd make friends. And the most common place that I learn a lot of Linux stuff is from friends that I network with through IRC. Nowadays, it's Discord, and I mean, I would say the most common, truly helpful source of learning Linux and helping with Linux with troubleshooting is through friends. Plain and simple.
I don't know if you know this, Dad, but Linux nerds don't have friends. It's against the rules.
Yeah, I know. We don't have friends. We just have cats and skunks
Yes.
and raccoons.
Drew, go ahead.
Yeah, when we do searches, and if you're putting them into whatever search engine, I don't care if it's Google or not, the outdated, the amount of outdated like results are kind of maddening. That's why I think I've turned to try other things. But I agree. I think wikis are an outstanding way to like look at answers that you may not have, and your own documentation, Matt.
Yes.
Your own documentation ends up being just a great resource for yourself, because once you find the answer, you got to keep that answer.
Very true. And everybody should keep their own documentation. You're like the progenitor of that idea, and it's so good. Chargoose, go ahead.
And not to keep on the not to keep on the AI train though, but I have that problem where I get the old answers, from some or even hallucinations, I guess. But what I find is funny is I'll just casually ask it whatever it is that I'm looking for, and I won't get a very good result. But then if I start cheering it on, gas it up real good, you're doing great, AI. Listen, yeah, this is I think you're going to be able to do this, and then it gives me better answers. I don't know what's going on with that, but that always amuses me.
Yeah. Drew, go ahead.
How many people have actually used YouTube as a resource for finding answers? I know that I have. Let's put it that way. I think that, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us have. I think that sometimes you are, even if it's beyond your kind of sphere of friends, like Hip Dad was saying, you can kind of look at the guys on YouTube and you say, you know what, that guy makes a lot of sense. And what I was looking for is right there. And and sometimes they actually perform the step by step in order to get to that end result. And that is such a valuable tool. Now, not everybody's the best, and not everybody has all the answers, but sometimes those answers lead you to somebody else that does have the answer.
Can give you an idea of what to search for, even, right? Gnome, go ahead.
I just kind of wanted to mirror what Hip Dad was saying about books, and recommend one. I think I got this off of Amazon for like 20 or 30 bucks, but it's the Unix Power Tools. It was made or reprinted. The third edition was reprinted back in 2003, but it's totally relevant to almost everything in Linux. So it's a real good reference.
Hip Dad?
Okay. Now, this isn't like wanting free merch or anything. My beginning with coming back to Linux, I YouTubed, looking just for Linux YouTubes. Found the Linux Cast.
Never
Matt.
heard of him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he likes to slam his head on the microphone a lot.
I've never done that before in my entire life. I don't know what you're talking about.
He's not quite in focus all the time. He slams his keyboards around.
That I've never done.
He buys webcams a lot.
That's true.
And they usually suck. He likes Michigan football teams and the Eagles. I don't know. But my point being is I did a search on YouTube to find Linux broadcast and found Matt. So found Matt, and then I found out, okay, go to Discord. And I went to Matt's Discord, and then I started getting friends on Discord and everything, and then branched out, and I've got friends all throughout the Linux community now. I mean, so, and I've even been on a couple of the Linux Cast broadcasts and this LUG group and other times and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I still am going to go by friends.
Yeah. Sorry. I had to respond to somebody in chat who was talking nice things about the Linux cast. Can't do that. Chargoose, go ahead.
Actually, you know what? I was thinking about the thing that's taught me the most, I guess, about Linux was studying for the Linux Plus certification exam. So, got buying the material for LPIC level 1 or Linux Plus. I guess at the time they were giving them both out basically when I was doing them. So you do one, you get the other one. But in any case, yeah, I think that's a really great option too. You know, go on CBT Nuggets or whatever it is. Get the, you know, buy the boot camp if that interests you, and go through and do the course materials, and you'll definitely learn about, you know, his. They're very broad, I guess. They don't want to be distro. I guess they're trying to be distro agnostic as much as you can, I guess. But yeah, that's a good idea too.
So I'm going to turn the topic back to a couple things that we've talked about that I've made some notes on. So the first thing is, do you guys think that Discord is a good place for support? Because I know that there's a lot of kind of controversy around this, because Discord is obviously a very proprietary, very, shall we say, not privacy focused platform, and yet a lot of projects, a lot of distros, a lot of open source advocates and projects use it as their primary source of offering support. I know OpenSUSE does. They do have a forum you can use, but it's not nearly as populated as their Discord server. And I know like Fedora does, and Ubuntu. I don't know about Ubuntu so much, but I know a lot of them do. So that's my question. Do you think Discord is a good place for it? Or do you think that it should be less used? HipDad, looks like you rang in first. So that's what Jitsy's telling me. Go ahead.
Well, this is similar to what the IRC was back in the beginning days and everything. Is you would find an IRC Ubuntu channel, an IRC Red Hat channel, an IRC Debian channel, and most of the time they wanted to talk over you and treat you like an idiot, like tell you to read the manual and all that stuff, just like you have nowadays here. And it's a similar thing with Discord. If you go to like Arco Linux, you went to Arco Linux Discord, the worst support area ever. You go in there and they just totally flame you to death and everything, and just, yeah. And then same way with a lot of your other distro specific servers on Discord. I don't go to them. It's useless for me. I just hang out and watch YouTube videos and talk to Discord friends, and I either get directed to where I need to go, or I end up going down the rabbit hole, and finding the answer myself.
GNU to Linux, go ahead.
Yeah, it depends on the Discord. There are some channels on certain Discords that are set up specifically for help. And if you ask an intelligent question and post it in the right channel, and you're patient, and for example, the Linux Mint Discord, I'll mention that again because they have not only a great forum, but if you prefer, the Discord, they have a channel just for that. And, there's been times where I've, posted a question and gotten a really good answer, and maybe something that, a bit of a broader question than you might just be able to Google. And, if one or more people chime in, sometimes they'll give you one or more ways to fix your problem.
Okay, before I go on to the next person, I need to respond to somebody in chat. No pain, no gain. I think you're talking to me about Hyperland. Yes, I'm using Hyperland again. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I need to... Sorry, just side rant for just a second. I bitched and complained about the Hyperland cursor for a while, like on the podcast the other day. That was all my fault. Never, just pro tip, never use a link to your bash RC. It doesn't work, okay? And my dumbass did it, forgot that I done it, and that's the reason why my path didn't work. It wasn't reading the path variables I set in there because it was a fucking soft link. So yeah, just completely off topic. But let's go back to what we're talking about. D-Dubs, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it happens. The thing about, to HipDad's point, is it doesn't really matter the I'll say the format, or the whether it's a forum, whether it's a web forum, whether it's Discord, whether it's IRC, a Telegram, it doesn't matter, any Mastodon. It's the people who are running it and their personalities. Now, what Norm said before is correct. If you approach somebody, and just to Linux as well, if you approach somebody and asking for help with decent amount of information, and you've done even a little bit of work on your own to try to figure it out, to get a better explanation of what the issues are and providing errors and so forth, you get a lot better response. As someone who answers a lot of questions, after a while you get really tired of, I got this error, I don't know how to fix it. What are you running? There's all kinds of, what's the distro? I'm assuming it's Hyperland because you're here, but sometimes you find out, no, I'm running GNOME. Then, why are you on a Hyperland channel?
Yeah.
So I see from both sides. It's a human nature issue, not a technology. Not is Discord bad? Well, does Discord do some things I don't like? Yes, but it's very popular, and it, for the most part, works. So yeah, I think it's really what we're talking about in that case is a human thing. We're like people that just are aggressively read the manual. But again, after a couple of years of answering questions and having to play 20 questions with people to get out what the actual issue is, honestly, I understand the frustration. I understand the desire to just want to say, bugger off and go read the manual.
Yeah,
You know?
I think that there's a problem. I think that the biggest problem when it comes to support is on both sides, right? Just like with any problem, there's issues on both sides. There's obviously assholes who answer questions like that, RTFM. That's completely useless. But also on the other side of it is that a lot of, and I don't want to seem like the old curmudgeonly guy here on the podcast because I'm like midway through everyone, but there's a tendency with a newer generation to want things done for them. Some of that is, maybe we can blame it on AI, but I think it's been going on longer than the AI thing has been going on. And if someone doesn't give them the exact code to paste, the exact command to do on how to fix it, they get upset. So if I were to ask you, D-Dubs, how to do something, and you provided me a link to the Arch Wiki, I would think that was horrible because you didn't just tell me how to do it. And you provided the resource for me to help myself, but that's not what I asked for. Damn it, I wanted the answer, and you're wasting my time, and that gets some people pissy on the asking end because they don't want they have this, hard to call it anything but entitlement to the exact answer right now, and if you don't help me, you are the toxic one. You know what I mean? So, and you get enough of that attitude, and you get enough of the RTFM guys, which actually doesn't provide any use. If they provided you a link or whatever, then it would be useful. And you get those things kind of rubbing against each other, and you have it just provides an entire environment in the support ecosystem that just doesn't really work all that much or work that well.
True, but again, you also, we're all volunteers. Not getting paid for it. So don't also waste my time either. And right, if you just send somebody the Arch Wiki, that's usually not very helpful. But if you send them the link where the answer is, I think that's okay.
Yeah, that's more what I was talking about. But I've done that for people. Like, I'm not just going to provide a code snippet. Unless it's like one command or whatever. Especially when there's a better. The Arch Wiki is going to explain something a lot better than I'm ever going to in a while I'm on my phone or whatever. So it's much easier to do it that way. But I've seen multiple people get upset when I give them that link, and they're like, "Why didn't you just give me the answer? Why do I have to go sift through this thing? Like I even scrolled down the fucking page. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How much more do I have to do for you? It's so stupid.
No, I've cut and paste the answer with the link. Because this gets to be like with the FAQs and you talk about documentation, and there's a lot of good projects like Drew's, for example, JAK's, that have tremendous documentation, and people just don't bother to even attempt to read it. Though that, so again, it is not a very simple, it's a human issue. It's a human condition issue because people are often just lazy. Just tell me the answer. And that's nothing new. That is not anything to do with Jen. I don't care which one because it's been around for as long as I've been around.
Yeah.
Just tell me what the answer is. You see it in school. You don't want to learn how to learn. You want to just get the answer so I can pass this test and move on to the next thing.
Yeah, very true. Chargoose, go ahead.
Yeah. My personal opinion on Discord is that it is a terrible place to act as a help source or a uh, uh, even as an instant answer gratification machine. And the reason why is because typically, or at least I have not found it from a Google search result that the link leads me back to discord.gg/discord. Not a thing. So all that knowledge that's being accumulated from these little pigeonholed silos for all these distros and things will never surface in the general population on the internet. And so it's a terrible, terrible mechanism for help or support at all. I don't like it.
Yeah, the whole siloing of the information is probably the worst part. I mean, yeah, there's the whole privacy stuff that goes on, and Discord being a capitalist company that wants to make money and all that stuff that goes along with the arguments. But I do agree that the inability for someone who's outside of Discord to find that information, and really even people inside of Discord to find the information, even if even if you go to like the open studios of Discord and you want to find something, searching for that information is hard because you don't know, first off, if the information exists. And second of all, what really to ask for, because nothing's organized. It's just a chat log. It would be like going to IRC. IRC has the same exact issue. You can't search on Google for an IRC support chat and ask for the previous information. It just doesn't work that way, right? It's just Discord is much bigger than IRC ever was, so the problem is exacerbated. Gnome, go ahead.
Oh, I got a few things like the whole on the siloing topic because it was the most recent. It is bad because, like you said, there's no archive to scroll back through unless you've been inside that chat room, just kind of watching chat flow. And then there's no scrolling back. There's no history. So all those little tidbits are lost to time. And that's kind of how gurus are made, like that's where these dark gurus, like that's where they kind of hang out at. They basically know every in and out of that distribution. And that's what I'm saying. That's my best tech support is if you ask a very knowledgeable question that is niche, it's not in a wiki anywhere. If it's in a wiki, you're going to get basically, and I'd also like to play devil's advocate for support technicians in IRC, Discord, wherever they may fall. A lot of the questions that users ask are very repetitive and they get asked a lot. This is why there is FAQs and wikis so that it can take the load off of the actual human tech support. Because I shouldn't be having to answer the same question 15 times in 4 hours. There's just no reason for that. Open the damn wiki up. And finally, it is kind of a human issue. I'd have to agree with D-Dubs. People don't like to open the book up. I don't like to go do the reading. They just want instant gratification. We are the newer generation they're born of instant gratification. It's everywhere. That's what the internet is.
Yeah, it does seem to be worse, but D-Dubs is right. Has been around for quite a long time, right? I guess actually, Drew, go ahead.
I've been thinking about, while you guys were talking, I've been thinking about really good implementations of help. And I know that Ghosty does this right on their GitHub page. And I think Hyperland does too, but I just didn't go check. They have two separate things on their GitHub, one for discussions and another one for issues. And so when these projects that are like, in heavy development right now have these kind of like discussions that are based on like, user problems and things like that, or asking questions and stuff like that. and then like actually defined bugs actually go to an issues tab within GitHub. I think that's a very good use of either finding or identifying problems in the software. Now, it's not going to train you. That I think that there's a big difference between like trying to get some help and understanding things that may be beyond your skill set. But overall, if you are someone that is technically savvy, let's say, having discussions and then issues being available to you on these projects, I think is an outstanding way to kind of like, invest and integrate yourself into that project.
Yeah, the GitHub stuff is very interesting because it does leave a trace, right? You can go there, find something from 6 months ago if you're having the same problem, get your help or whatever. But I've also found like those projects you mentioned, Drew, are very rare in doing that. And the vast majority of them just have the issues tracker, and they almost all specifically want bugs, right? They're not there for, hey, how do I do this thing? It's not that kind of thing. And if you go in there and ask that type of question, a lot of times your issue just gets deleted. Like they don't even respond to it, depending on the developer or whatever. So, and it's very much depending on the size of the project too, right? Like they have to have, if it's just like one dude, I mean, you can't really blame them for not being as organized as something like GNOME or KDE or whatever. So, they're going to have, the bigger the project, the more structure they're going to have on their GitHub and elsewhere for support. I think the more general, like the funny thing, just to go back to the Discord thing just for a second, the funny thing about like my Discord server is we have a tech support channel, but it's literally just a forum. That's all it is. So we're just taking the forum out of the internet and put it in a Discord server and put it behind a sign up wall, basically. I think that it makes it a little bit easier to find things if you're in Discord, because you can go back there and search and it's there, but it's also still on Discord. Gnome, go ahead.
I'm glad Drew brought up the whole GitHub issues. I didn't even think about that. That's a very valuable resource. I can't count the number of times that I will copy text from the terminal, like an error from journal control or system control, and paste it verbatim into Google. And it'll bring back a GitHub issue on that project. And you can go see if the issue was closed or what version it was involved in or what they did as a workaround to solve it. I can't count the number of times that GitHub issues has fixed something for me.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move on to another question, unless you guys have anything else on the Discord/GitHub thing. No? Okay. Just to double back a little bit again for another question. So we talked about how AI gives out older information. And I just want to ask, do you guys think it's actually all that surprising? Because they're probably training themselves on Ask Ubuntu. I don't know if you guys have actually gone in through and been on Ask Ubuntu, but if you need to search for something, some of that stuff is from 2010. And it may work, it may not work, but that's exactly where AI is getting its information from, is from that kind of stuff. And that's the reason why the information is old. D-dubs?
There's a couple of things to that, though, because, again, it gets back to the quality of the model. And even now what I've been noticing is with it, even in the free tiers, by default, it gives you the quick response, but you can actually ask it to dig deeper. But the surprising thing to me was, I don't know, maybe a week or so ago, I was trying to find an issue, and it actually pulled in a update to the project I was looking for, and it was out of the recent changes. So it was doing more than just the learning the language model and so forth, which is typically older, but it's still pulling in newer resources. So it's a little bit of a hybrid. But no, the other thing that I found is you always have to give it specifically like the versions of things that you're using. If you say NixOS versus NixOS 2505 unstable, you get two very different answers. because I think it does just make a general assumption, and then things change within that. If you said tumbleweed versus whatever the version is, it helps. It helps a lot. So there is a bit of a quality issue, both of the input and the which engine you're actually talking about. Because, like I say, I found with Sonet, with compared to Bard, Copilot is pretty terrible. Date wise. So yeah, I think there's not an easy, simple answer. You'd have to say, well, I'm using this one. How up to date is that one? And also, the other thing is you have different language models within a structure, and you can on the pro side, when you pay for it, you could actually pick different models out of the same engine because they're geared for different to better functionality in certain things. But a lot of it, for those of us who are using the free, we don't get all the choices. I think a lot of people forget that.
I think that it's interesting. I don't know. I started university in 2004, and one of the classes we had to take as freshmen was I don't remember the exact name of the course, but it was something to do with computers. And one of the things we had to do in that class was learn how to use a search engine. Like they literally taught us how to use a search engine. They taught us about how Boolean search worked and all that stuff. I have no clue if they still do that these days, but it feels like things like AI. I mean, I know it's moving very, very fast and things are changing, but it feels like eventually there's going to have to be a class on like, here's how to use it, and how to properly phrase your questions in order to get, because one of the things you said, D-Dubs, is you have to be very careful to give a version number. I would be very curious how many absolutely brand new to Linux users know what version of Ubuntu they're using or what version of Linux Mint they're using. Maybe some of them, maybe because they saw it in the ISO name or something like that. But it'd be interesting to see how many of them actually could say, I'm using Ubuntu 22.04 or whatever. Because I'm not sure that that's a piece of information that a lot of people have. And as you move away from the more popular distros like Ubuntu and Linux Mint, that version number becomes more obscure. So like Debian, like how many people know that Debian's on 12 right now and is moving to 13? I mean, maybe some people. OpenSUSE, who the hell knows what version number they're using? Like, because they change things so often. Are they on leap 15 or are they leap 16? Both of them actually still exist, and you can download them both. And so I think the version number is very interesting because you're right. That is something you will have to do if you want to search through these things. But actually knowing that information, I think, is harder for at least the new users than probably what we expected to be. Go ahead, D-Dubs.
Yeah, just briefly add on that, I think even when they know the version, because they don't necessarily include it, they don't think it's important. Because, again, being on Discord a lot, I always have to say, well, what's your distro? And they'll come back, oh, I'm using 2404, or I'm using 2410, or whatever it is, or I'm using Arch. Of course, I always have to say which Arch. So many. But no, I think a lot of times you just don't think that it's needed. Because like I say, I look at the quality of the questions that I get, and you see it all the time. I get an error. Well, what's the error? I mean, that should be such common sense. Because if you reversed it to the person, you said to them, "Oh, it's like going to the doctor and say, doctor, I got a pain." Well, tell me about it. Where is it? Well, you're the doctor. You figure it out. It's just not going to work really well.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you've seen this, but really, it's not even I get an error because most people aren't using this thing in a terminal where it'll actually spit out an error. It's just like, this thing ain't working. Like, why isn't it working? Like, why won't it launch?
Oh, no.
Right?
You get errors. You get errors in dialog boxes and things.
Well, sometimes, but
or like with it doesn't. Yes, and that's a different subject though. The triage process is a skill. There's to be able to triage something requires knowledge, experience, and so forth. Because most people don't realize. By the way, you can go to the TTY and try to run things. You can try to start like Hyperland, because then you'll actually see an error, or even how to get to the TTY. let alone that it
Or
exists.
what is a TTY?
What is the TTY? Like, for example, what's the TTY? What's TTY versus CLI? Those sorts of things. But there's also, people don't realize you could start a program in the terminal, because again, it will often generate an error that you don't see because it's in the logs. Let alone know how to go to the logs. I'm not asking new users to understand that yet, but no, that's the thing, is providing whatever information that you have. Even
Yeah.
if it's, like I say, in the Discord servers that I use, I basically try to force people to use the IXNI utility. I don't know if you've ever used that.
Mm.
It's a diagnostic tool you can run. It's pretty much in every distro, and it generates hardware. So I know that they're running NVIDIA and what kernel and what Mesa drivers and so forth, what their NICs are, memory, CPU, because having to ask over and over and over again. You got NVIDIA, you're running the Nuvo drivers. Well, what are the Nuvo drivers? You're running the open source drivers, or you're running the proprietary drivers? So I basically say, run this command. I give them the command, pipe it to a file, upload the file, and then, I can at least help you. That's I guess what I'm saying, and that's again a human thing, being able to correctly describe with whatever information that you know. Because there's a page, I sent it to somebody, they got really offended, is how to ask for help in a forum. And I'm like, I'm trying to help you. I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm still helping you, but you need to learn how to ask for help. That's a skill they should teach.
Yeah. True.
I don't know. All of a sudden, Matt said something about Debian, and my ears perked up and stuff. And I was like, I'm still on Buster or something.
That's not true.
Okay. Well, I'll say yeah, it is. But so anyway, as far as your class that you were talking about, where it was teaching you how to use a search engine and stuff like that, I'm wondering, and this may have already happened because I'm freaking old, but I'm wondering if incoming freshmen are going to be learning how to use large language models, and if there's going to be coursework around actually just using it and not like programming it and stuff like that. That's a completely separate issue altogether. And I'm wondering, in 2004, was Google the dominant search engine at the
Yes.
time? Was that okay? Because I thought it was like right around then where they may have taken over for Yahoo. Like Yahoo was like one, and then Google like surpassed it, I think. And I thought it was like right around that time.
Yeah, so freshmen in 2004 were young enough to remember when there were other search engines. So like Alta Vista, we still knew what that was.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like really around. Like you didn't use it. Alta Vista, Ask Jeeves, things like that. Like we all used those in like middle school and high school. But by the time we got to college, Google was it. I think in 2000
Site, Hotbot, I can go on all day.
Yeah.
Dogpile.
Yeah.
Mr. Jeeves.
Ask Jeeves, actually.
Ask Jeeves. That's what it was. Thank you.
I think that I think that by 2004, if I'm not wrong, maybe I'm a couple years early, but I think that by 2004, Yahoo was just serving like Bing results. I think that was around that time. Because you're gonna remember in 2006, Twitter was invented. So the search wars by 2004, 2005, 2006, it was basically over by then. It was Google. That was it. So yeah, that's what we learned on was Google.
One more thing I was thinking of though was like there are LLMs that are actually searching the web at this point too. They're not like so old and then they just stop. It's like, oh, we only have information up to 2003 and then that's it. But I know that ChatGPT has their way to search the web now, as well as Grok has it, and the one that kind of like is not on anybody's mind at this point is Perplexity. Actually, I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of Perplexity AI, but that is very good for and very conversational, and it's kind of an answer engine with a lot of resources that go with it. So you can say, ask it a question, and then it will provide like almost a, bibliography of what you can go look at. So, as far as Perplexity AI, I know that is being talked about for maybe Apple. I think Apple's starting to think about using Perplexity as its AI or search engine.
The whole source thing is really interesting because ChatGPT has gotten way better at showing the sources, but I've always found that getting people to click on those things is kind of like getting people to look at the bibliography at the end of a history book. And they just, yeah, no, they're not gonna. By the time they get to that part, they're done with the book. They're not, or looking at a footnote. And also, as someone who had a degree in history, do you guys remember, like that? It's in Chicago style. Like, how am I supposed to read that thing? It's like fucking. Sorry, Gnome, go ahead.
Back to what D-Dubs was kind of talking about with all the information being provided and whatnot. I think, and I guess in my opinion, I don't know, a good tech support agent, when they're not provided those details, even can do, they'll ask like leading questions, sort of, or provide commands to get the information they need. Or even go one step further, like he was talking about the IXNI, that just does it all one shebang done, wham bam. But they can also help try and solve with leading questions. They can find out what the source of the issue is if they don't know what the actual error is they're looking at. Like they can help try and find the error and then dig deeper from there.
Yeah. I think that the difference between that and what the Linux community does is that all those guys are paid for it, right? If we were all being paid to provide the tech support to the randos in Discord and on the Arch forums, our patience would be much higher than doing it for free. D-Dubs?
You just said exactly what I was about to say. That is exactly correct. When there's a line, one of the wise guys on the Hyperland Discord goes, "Is 8 free labor great?" And that's really what it is. My time has a value, and I'm willing to share it. I'm willing to help anybody, but don't waste my time. Maybe that was, that's kind of what I was trying to say earlier. Is like, your time is valuable too. And you're right. I mean, if a person goes, they might not know a lot about whatever their issue is. Provide what you do know. Don't just say, well, it is broken or it does. What is it? It's not only just bad grammar, but it's really hard to help you. Because like somebody says, oh, I got this. My cursor is janky. Well, if you said I've got an NVIDIA and my cursor is janky, well, that narrows it down. I can give you the top 3 answers of why that happens. But if I go, oh, you're running Hyperland, you're running NVIDIA, it's so there's just that kind of thing. I'm not necessarily saying, hey, you got to give me a diag or you got to give me the error logs. Give me something to work with. It's just, like I say, it's very frustrating day after day after day. And I had a case where I was helping somebody with Zany OS, and all the answers were in the FAQ. So I answered the first one. I said, here's the link, and I'm very nice. I copy and pasted out of the FAQ the answer, and I put it in the reply. He asked another question. Guess what? That was also in the FAQ. And by the way, there's a copy of the FAQ when you download the project. You literally have a copy of it.
That was question 6.
And so I pasted that in there. After the 4th one, I go, not to be mean here, to drive this home, but all of these things are in the FAQ. And I even converted it to HTML for the guy so he could render it locally, So that's when you you scratch your head and go, is this really worth doing? That's where I understand totally when, people on these super busy Discord servers, you know, that just are just tired of it.
I
It's very
apologize.
difficult to be patient.
I apologize for interrupting, but there's an old saying: you can lead a horse to water.
Yeah. But again, you don't want to be mean, and especially people who are new to something. And by the way, this has nothing to do with Linux. Having had supported Windows since Windows was 1.0, I got the same kind of things. There is a learning curve, and then some people don't. Maybe people want to look bad or look stupid or whatever, but it is just those kinds of things. So I get it. I get the both sides of it, and that's why we all try to be patient. I mean, Drew's always patient with me. I must drive him nuts.
I think that the biggest problem is that there's many places for support, right? Like there's Ask Ubuntu, there's all these Discord servers, there's GitHub, there's GitLab, there's Stack Overflow. There's multiple different versions of Stack Overflow, and you have to dismiss the cookies bar on every single one of them. Like, no, I don't want your damn cookies. Leave them alone. Sorry. And every one of them has their own way of asking for questions, right? I think it'd be very helpful if a lot of these, like the big places, I'm not talking like the smaller ones, but the big places had a here are the things you have to give us in order to ask for help, like five things, right? And maybe if you're like a Discord server and you're offering a forum support, have a Discord bot or something like that. When someone asks a question, it replies with a format that they have to ask it in, and maybe they won't ask their question then, but maybe they will just have the information ready for whatever human comes in and wants to answer. But that would require people to actually go through and set that kind of stuff up, and it doesn't seem like they actually want to. D-Dubs, go ahead.
Yeah, by the way, if you ever want to see how that sort of doesn't work, is go to the Hyperland Cathedral Discord server. Their support channel has a bot like that, and it actually causes just confusion because it is so verbose and just throws all this sort of crap out there that you're talking about, and it doesn't really even give any preliminary kind of answers, but it just causes this vast increase in noise. But seriously, go check it out sometime.
Well, I mean, it sounds like more that they just need to do it better. But like for example, on a lot of like issues for GitHub, if you create an issue, it'll have certain things already fill out for you in the issue. Then you just kind of have to fill in the blanks.
Right, that's a
right?
template, though. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
It feels like if we had some more stuff like that, it would solve some of the problems. It's not going to solve all the problems, and it wasn't trying to solve all the problems, but having the ability to, because a lot of times the people who are asking questions aren't being belligerent or dumb on purpose. They just don't know any better, right? So having some kind of automation to help them along for the information you're going to ask for anyways seems like a good idea. Even if it's just like a pinned post or something like that, even though like those get lost all the time and like, people don't check those, but there are ways of doing it that don't require you to spit out 10,000 lines, So I don't know.
Let me clarify. I'm saying you want to see a bad example of that. Okay. Go there, because I agree with you. If there was, a bot that would make sure that if you're asking a technical question in the voice chat, that or in the generic chat, that says, "Hey, by the way, you need to go here and provide this info." I agree. That would be very helpful. Those kinds of things are good uses for automation. When you create a post or you create an issue, that it should help you with a template. I agree with that too.
Well, and I think if more places did it, people would get used to it, right? Yeah,
I agree. Yeah. But what ones are out there for free is the next question, because I don't think all those bots are free.
Well, no, but I mean, I'm a moron when it comes to Python. I can code a Python bot in about 10 minutes. It's one of the easiest things you can actually do. Now, I don't know how hard it would be to actually do what I'm talking about, but there are bots out there that do like automated response type thing. They already
yeah.
exist, and those are free and easy to use. I had one on our Discord for not too for a little while. Now you're right; it does get messy because if a lot of people ask questions at the same time, then it responds to them and get a whole flood of messages. But and I don't know if it works in the forum like layout or not. So that's been a while ago, so I don't know. I'm actually going to GNOME first, and then I'm going to move us on to another question to get us away from the AI stuff. Go ahead.
Kind of the reverse of automation. It was quite a few number of years ago. I remember when I was talking about IRC, I went to the Arch support channel, and I guess I don't know if they were being spammed by different distros and everybody was just asking different questions, but in order to even ask for help in that, no, this was years ago, but in order to even ask for help, they'd send you a command, and it was basically a SHA-256 sum of the username, like uname -a, or the Etsy LSB release or something to prove you were running Arch. And if your hash didn't come back with something they matched, they wouldn't give you support.
And then they press the red button and you get thrown into the
You're basically
pit of
sharks.
sharks.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So my next question, as instead of supporters, but as supportees, I guess, the people asking for support, what are your worst experiences that you've ever had asking for support? Because while we're all fairly knowledgeable about Linux, and we're probably mostly on the like the DDub side of things, where we all go to DDubs and we all go to Drew when we have questions. But we've all had situations where we've had to ask questions ourselves. So what are the worst experiences or the worst experience you've had when asking for support on or about a Linux or open source project? Anybody? No, go ahead.
I was bringing up that years ago again, trying to do that SHA sum. I was still pretty new to Linux. I didn't really know much about it. I was trying to learn. Like I went from Ubuntu to Arch, and I ran Ubuntu for like a month, and then I found out that Arch was better. So I just switched to Arch, not knowing anything about Linux. And here I am in an IRC channel because I'm a 90s, 80s kid. I grew up in IRC, trying to get help, and I'm like, how do I do this? Like I don't know what in the heck trying to connect the dots, and it was not a fun experience. But this was probably a decade ago, nearly.
Anybody else want to answer that question, Drew?
I think it was Micro, the terminal text editor, and I put in what I would consider, it wasn't actually like a tech support question. It was more of a feature request. Okay. So I put in the feature request and they said, that's not a feature request. Write your own. Basically, it's like we have no desire to even entertain the idea of an additional feature in our project. If you want to do it, have at it. And I was like, dude, I'm just trying to make your project better. It's no skin off my nose. Overall, I was just like trying to help out. So yeah, I hate when people will kind of go back at you and it's like, that's not my problem. Just, you fix it. And I think we've all had those kind of like interactions where it's just like, you're trying to help and you want to be heard and you get shut down almost immediately,
So I have a couple exactly like that. Just a second, Dad. I'm going to say mine. I'll go to you. So one of my worst experiences actually is with when I first joined OpenSUSE, and I don't even really remember what the problem was, but it wasn't an OpenSUSE problem. I kind of knew that going in, but I didn't know where the problem was. I couldn't find it in a log. I couldn't find it in anything. So I went and asked in the OpenSUSE forums how do I fix this? I did it the right way. I gave as much information as I had. I told them what distro I was on, what drivers I was using, all that stuff. And apparently someone knew what the problem was, but they wouldn't tell me what the problem was. They told me instead that it wasn't their problem. It was the problem of whatever application I was using, and I had to go find them. So, I was like, well, okay, that was a waste of my time. You could have, but fine, I understand. So I went to that program's GitHub, asked them the question, and again provided all the relevant information. Also told them that I'd been to OpenSUSE and they said it wasn't an OpenSUSE problem, and got sent back to OpenSUSE because the app developer said it wasn't their issue either. And I just kept going around and around in circles, and I don't think I ever got the solution. I think I just switched to a different application. But I think one of the biggest problems when it comes to this kind of thing is figuring out where, because if you don't know anything about anything, which is the state of a noob basically, and you don't know how to point towards, yeah, that's the problem, that's where I go get help, because there's not like one place you can go get help at, and getting help from a specific place is really hard. So as when you don't know that the specific where the specific when you don't know what specific place to go to. So that's the experience I had. It was just a very bad kind of off-putting experience, because like I'm trying to do the right thing. I've asked politely. I went to the most general place I could ask, and it made more sense asking in OpenSUSE because that's what I was using than going to ask Ubuntu for it. So it just made more sense to me. Hip Dad, go ahead.
Well, I mean, my worst experience actually goes back to the beginning when first installed Red Hat or Debian or Slackware, if you really, really wanted to hurt, was trying to figure out how to get your serial mouse to work. And there was nobody. There was no forums. There was hardly any IRC you could find. I mean, I didn't even know about IRC. And so you basically had to go search for books, and then you had to decipher these books that were somewhat cryptic because they expected a level of knowledge that you didn't have. So, I mean, the beginning was my worst experience, but, I still sludged through. And like I said before, I ended up finding friends that helped. I used to have a friend he was originally from the United States, but he was an AI professor, and he became a professor down in Chile. And he would SSH into my computer and do a proprietary install of my NVIDIA drivers straight from the SH from NVIDIA for me. And it would work every time. So, back in the beginning when there really wasn't any interaction available yet.
Promise Unix, go ahead. You got to unmute yourself. Go ahead. It's the little, yeah. Oh, no, can't hear you. You are unmuted, but you're coming through the wrong source. Linux audio problems, they happen, man. There's a little like arrow atop the audio settings. Make sure you choose the right source.
Is that working?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Oh, I could actually turn my mic on.
None of us have ever done that before.
No. Anyway, my favorite ever was talking about IRC. I think I had to compile my first IRC chat client and finally got it going and finally got on a channel and went in and said, okay, I'm here. What do I do? And I got annihilated. They were basically like, what are you doing here if you don't know what you're doing? And I was like, because I want to learn, but I don't know what to do. Right. So that's my favorite one. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that definitely happens. One of my, so just to pick on Hyperland for a minute, when I first started using Hyperland, it was well after it came out. Like I resisted it for a long time because of how fast it moved around. But I went there for the problem. Again, don't really remember what it was, but it was some error. Again, gave all the information, actually had the error code and everything. And Vaxry himself came along and said, well, this is an NVIDIA problem. And I was like, but I don't use NVIDIA. So, and his response to that was like, it's an NVIDIA problem. Like I showed him my NeoFetch at the time. Like, and it said like that I had an AMD card in my system. Like, I don't use NVIDIA, and yet he just kept coming back to me like, this is an NVIDIA problem, and that's all I have for you. Like okay. And I think that was one of the many times I was like, you know what, Hyperland's just not ready yet. And then I'm sure, I'm actually positive it led to a video on my channel about me talking about how Wayland itself wasn't ready yet, because of responses like that. So yeah, definitely had the responses there. I have actually had quite a few interesting support conversations with people in the Hyperland community regarding that, because their number one response is, well, you must be using NVIDIA. If something goes wrong, it can't possibly be a bug in our code. It has to be an NVIDIA problem. Now, I don't know if that's gotten better, because I'm actually haven't had problems with Hyperland in a while, other than that cursor thing, which was blatantly ended up being my fault. So good thing I didn't make the video I wanted to make, because it would have made me look like a fool. Go ahead.
It's been kind of brought up a couple times now and kind of beat around the bush, but the open source community is kind of, I feel guilty saying this, but it's kind of tit for tat. Like, a lot of, since it's so disconnected and there's developers everywhere and different projects, and nobody's really at the wheel for, the general scope. There's just different helms everywhere. They'll kind of pass the buck to the next project. Oh, that's this person's problem. Oh, that's upstream's problem. Oh, that's, insert whatever here. It's not my problem. It's what the goal is. A lot of times, and I can't say a lot of times, but sometimes that does happen.
Yeah, Drew, go ahead.
It's the one time where you like get on the phone, like your internet connection is down, and you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. And when you get on there, they assume the assumption that you know absolutely nothing drives me insane. So I think I almost immediately have to use like some like 25-cent words and stuff like that, which make me at least sound somewhat like technical. But those conversations, those interactions with a first level support person is frustrating. I mean, just flat out frustrating. When it comes right down to it, I say, listen, I actually work in tech. This is, and I'm going to explain what's wrong. Okay. So please just listen to me. But it rarely works out.
Well, and it's even more frustrating when you tell them, like, I've reset the router, I've reset the modem, I've already done those things, and then the next words out of their mouth, well, could you please reset the router, and could you please reset the modem? Like, I've already done that. Can you just press the little button there that refreshes the signal? That's all that needs to be done. Do I need to do it for you? D-Dubs, go ahead.
I often say, listen,
Oh,
the ONT is, there's a problem with the ONT and blah, blah, blah. And they go, you know what the ONT is? Yes, I know what the ONT is. And there is a frayed wire going into the ONT. Can you, and then when they say, can you reset your router? That's when that's when I hit the roof.
But you know what they're going to say? It's, I think they actually have to ask it. Otherwise they probably don't get paid or something. I mean, there has to be some, I mean, obviously they have to assume that you know nothing, but once you've kind of demonstrated that you know something, they should be able to do it. But the vast majority of them don't know anything either. They're just reading out of a binder full of stuff. So they have to, they can't skip the steps because they don't know what steps they'd have to skip. So they have to start from the beginning. D-Dubs, go ahead.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Unfortunately, the first people you talk to know extremely little. They know the script. They know the basic troubleshooting. They're handling the calls. They're there to make sure, oh, we need to dispatch a technician, or I'll process you a new router, so forth. That's where their knowledge ends, generally speaking, because they are paid the absolute least possible. And that is true of every large company I've ever worked in. The first line response are the absolute greenest people, and I guarantee you know more than they do. I'm surprised they even knew what an ANT was. Or you say, well, running a constant ping, I'm getting these threshold, but they're like, what? Yeah, because it's not on their script. So you can't get mad at them because they just don't know, and they have to follow the script. It's not so much that
I
they
can do
want
whatever I want. I can get really.
So yeah, it's just unfortunate that that's just the nature of the beast. That's one of the reasons, honestly, that AI is replacing a lot of the front end tech support because they weren't a value add.
Well, just to bring in an example of this beyond the ISPs, like Dell itself, like if you call Dell or you get into Dell's WhatsApp for support, the first thing they're going to do is update your BIOS, dude. Like, it doesn't matter what the problem is. They're going to go, they're going to find every driver that they think might be possible causing your problem. They're going to go update it. Even if you told them that you already done it, they're going to do it. And then, of course, it's going to fix the problem because usually updating the BIOS, refresh it, clears some caches or whatever it does in the background. It fixes the problem for like 30 minutes, just enough for you to get off the phone. And then the problem comes back and you have to go wait on hold again. That's a thing I'm going through right now because my mom uses a Dell and the cursor keeps disappearing and you just can't get it back without going into BIOS and going out of BIOS. Like then the cursor will come back. And I've contacted Dell. They fixed it with a BIOS update. It's back again. Yeah.
Dude, you got Delled.
Yeah. What you're trying to say, D-Dubs, is I should buy an Asus or something? Probably not. Dad, go ahead.
Just to tell you right off the bat, you stay away from Asus support. Yes, no, don't go near them.
I'm just gonna buy her Mac. Is what I'm gonna doing. Like then when there's a problem, I can just take it a few miles in and they can fix it. You know what I mean? That's what I'm gonna doing. Go ahead.
That's true. But amazingly enough, I've been with Verizon for a long time, and I just switched to Verizon home Wi-Fi and everything. And I'm real pleasantly pleased with their support because I've had some issues, nothing major, but just some issues. And every time I've gotten a female support tech, and every time they've listened to me, when I've told them I've reset the modem, I've unplugged the modem, I've went to factory settings, et cetera, et cetera. I've told them everything I've done, and they listen to me, and they go and check my modem and all that, and then I'll be doing stuff at the same time. And a lot of times, what it's been is I'll look, and my phone is also having problems, and it's not connected to the Wi-Fi. And I'll be like, okay, I think you have a tower down or a tower issue because my phone's having issues also. I just now noticed that. And they're like, oh, let me check. They didn't try to tell me, no, that can't be it, or blah, 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 blah. They went and would check the towers. And they would switch me to a new tower and it would be fixed within an hour. And so I got to say, I'm real pleased with Verizon's support, which a lot of people would probably disagree with me. But I'm also, the observation is women listen more than men do. Just say it.
I'm sorry, Hip Dad, I wasn't listening.
I know.
Just kidding.
I know. That's
Come on, man. I'm sorry. I'm going to interject.
That's your aversion to old people thing there, Matt.
Hey, you want to leave me open for just that joke was right there. It was sitting on the tee. I had to hit it. Okay, it was right there. Like if you like my that's just the way that it is. It's in the rules.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah. Like, sorry, man, wasn't listening. All right. I do have a couple more questions. Let's go ahead and move on to something else. So here's one that's gonna be interesting. We've kind of talked our favorite YouTubers in a previous lug, but if you were deciding that YouTube was your primary source of getting help or finding questions or learning how to do something, what are your favorite YouTubers for learning how to do that? So, we all know you don't have to list me because I we can just go past that because I never heard of that guy. But what are your favorite Linux YouTubers that actually provide help and tutorials and stuff like that? Who wants to go first? I'll go first. Learn Linux TV is probably the best one that I've found. Jay is fantastic. Now he does focus a lot of his stuff on enterprise stuff, so it is, you know, a little bit enterprisey. But he does normal stuff too. You just kind of got to sift through the stuff if you need it. But if you need to set up Proxmox, there's no better place to go than Jay's channel. So Learn Linux TV is definitely a good place. Hipdad, go ahead.
I would say DT, Tech Up, and Learn Linux TV. Cyber Tech, I believe it is. DJ Ware, and Josh. Josh. I mean, as far as going to Josh, would be, but yeah, watching Josh's channels and his distro hacking stuff, I learned a lot too. I mean, it's not necessarily going to for troubleshooting. I mean, he does have them now. Arch, if you want tech support through YouTube with Arch or the old Arco Linux, Eric Dubois. Period.
Drew, go ahead.
I like oh shit, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. I like this guy. Back in the day, we actually just talked about him, Matt. He doesn't do videos anymore, but there was this guy, his name was Erano, and he had EF Linux made
Hermano, yeah.
Yeah, he had EF Linux made simple. And it was actually very, very good. I don't know if it stands up still anymore. But overall, I liked him. I also like this guy. I like Titus. I like Chris Titus. And I think some of the things that he does is phenomenal. Not just in Linux, but obviously for Windows users as well. I like Eric Murphy a little bit. I like. I think Jake at Linux has a really good kind of like scripting, and obviously he's into Void Linux, but I thought some of his stuff is really good. I actually thought he actually did a script online one time for BSPWM. I thought it was really, really good. There is a guy, I think it's just called Lawrence Systems. And if you are interested in TrueNAS scale, Lawrence Systems is outstanding for a TrueNAS scale. I think I'll pause and let somebody else go though.
Okay. Promise Unix, go ahead. You gotta unmute yourself again, bud.
There we go. I had to do it myself. I got to be a big boy. Shit. You guys actually hit all the ones that I was going to say for the most part. Learn Linux TV is awesome. I just had to turn it up to 2 times speed to get through it. But the actual knowledge is amazing. And I'll be honest with you, Matt, when I'm frustrated, when I'm pissed off with something about my system, I come watch whatever video you put up because I know that you're pissed off and something's not working for you.
I am
and
an angry little fella, aren't I?
No, it's like I'm like, I know he's pissed about something. And I'm like, he's having a worse day than I am, so let's do it. And peace, brother. I love it.
Well, I do enjoy my rants. I can't deny that. I need to get. I get ranty. That our last podcast, Drew, was very ranty, wasn't it? Go ahead.
Just a little bit.
Just a little. It wasn't my fault. I won't take credit for that. Go ahead.
I would agree with basically everything you guys have said so far. There's also a couple. There's a lot of their older content, like Brody Robertson, Network Check, David Bomble, a Mental Outlaw, and there's a good one called Tutorial Linux, but there's only one L, Tutorial Linux, and they've got a bunch of stuff too.
Arch Penguin, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to double down on what Drew had said about Hermano, I think is his name.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, fantastic. Still good. Yeah, he I haven't really seen any videos from him lately, but
yeah, he got a job. I think he had to stop YouTube.
Hopefully he comes back. Another, I think all you guys pretty much named all the really good ones. I have one more though that is actually a really pretty newcomer and young, but really really good. Is what is it? What's it?
You're talking about Bread on Penguins?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah. She's actually really. I've learned a couple things from that.
Almost certainly has to be related to Luke Smith somehow. I mean, seriously, got some. Definitely makes Drew's love of suckless software look pedestrian. I'm just saying, and that's saying something because Drew loves his suckless software. Drew, go ahead.
I don't think he's put a video out in a while, but there was this guy called Steven Tech Talks, and I thought his was really, really good, like very in depth. And I miss our friend, the guy that
Linux Dabbler.
Yes, Linux Dabbler.
Yeah.
He hasn't put out a video, and I don't even know how long. You knew exactly where I was going with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, because I miss him too. He just had to go have a family. The bastard. Like, how dare he have children? He needs to make us content. But yeah, every once in a while he'll pop in on a chat or something, just to let us know he's still alive. But yeah, he doesn't make content anymore. It's sad. You kind of took over the Debian space. True.
He was actually, I was watching some of the stuff he did. All of it, he had DWM and ST and Dev1, which I thought was like
Yeah.
kind of very niche.
And he liked what was that other window manager that he really liked? It wasn't Stump WM. It was like
No, he did Qtile too. I don't remember.
He had Qtile, and there was like another one. I don't remember, but he liked his alternative.
Spectre.
Spectre. That's when I knew it started with an S. Yeah, it's good stuff. So yeah, I think everybody named everything that I would say. There was a couple just because this channel primarily focused around the podcast for a long time. A couple podcasts that I point out, they're not necessarily for tutorials or help, but if you're looking to become a Linux nerd, you guys can actually see the hat today. It's kind of off camera, but there's several ones. So like obviously you can check out the Linux cast. I'm going to self promote there for a little bit, but also Late Night Linux and all of their stuff. They do a good job, even though Joe and I don't get along anymore. Then there's all the Jupiter podcasting stuff, including like Linux Unplugged and all of their stuff. There's one that they do called Self-Hosted, which is really, really good if you're into self-hosted stuff. There's Linux Lads, which is a bunch of guys from like Ireland. I can't understand them half the time, but man, are they funny as hell. Not necessarily, like I said, Linux help, but if you're looking, I think one of the best ways to become a Linux nerd is to delve into the topics that matter to us, and podcasting is one of the good ways to do that. Promise Unix, go ahead. Can't hear you. Your camera's off too. Something's funky going on there.
His connection's inactive.
Yeah, we can't hear you, bud. All right, we're gonna. If you get that fixed, you can raise your hand again. Gnome, go ahead.
I forgot about one. His content kind of ranges. He has a bunch of Linux content in the playlist, but recently he has a bunch of other videos that aren't Linux based. So I mean, sometimes it might even get a little political, but he has a lot of good Linux content, PHP or Python modules. He has a whole playlist on ChatGPT, Linux tools, CSS, Raspberry Pi. It's a good channel.
You never said the name.
Eli the Computer Guy.
Okay, I must have missed it. There's a couple other ones that I should mention. Luke Smith doesn't do Linux topics anymore, but if you go back to his backlogs and you want to learn how to do something in like Arch or DWM or even i3 way back in the day, his stuff still was really good. That's where I learned a lot of. I mean, just a lot of stuff came from Luke Smith. There's a couple other ones that DistroTube, obviously I know somebody mentioned him. I'm literally going through my subscribers list to figure out these things. That's where I mean, Craft Computing doesn't do a lot of Linux stuff, but if you're into self-hosting, he does some good stuff. Techno Tim, again, a lot of stuff, hosting stuff. He talks about Linux every once in a while. Although, don't aspire to his level of home lab, because you won't get there ever. You don't have that amount of resources. Promise Unix, did you get your stuff fixed? Nope, still can't hear you.
No, now?
Yeah,
No?
yeah. There you
Oh,
go.
Jesus. Never try to set up Bluetooth on your Nix box halfway through a Jitsi meeting. And I was having fun. I just want to throw out Ask Noah is kind of cool for some geeky Linux stuff. He does some pretty weird builds if you're into networking and stuff like that. But I just wanted to give him a shout out.
Does he still do like a call-in show or whatever, where like you?
Nobody ever calls in, but he's still got that number up there. He announces it every time, but nobody ever calls. But it's my little 1 hour once a week. It's just, he babbles, he rambles. Hey, it's pretty good. You mentioned Jupiter Broadcasting, which of course is good. I love everything Joe does. I think he's a dick, which is why I like him. But all the Linux, the dark shit, the late night Linux, I like the 2.5 admin stuff, even though I don't use ZFS, but I like listening to how arrogant they are. So I love them.
God,
I love them. I mean, it's great.
Like I really want to say words that wouldn't be good for me to say out loud. So I should probably not say those.
No, but it's you know what? They're fun to each their own, and you actually learn something every time you listen to them.
That's true.
So that's what I like about them. And hey, to each of them, be yourself, love whatever you love, but just Linux it up. So anyway, that's all I got.
Yeah, so I got a couple more. I'm just throwing in mine as I go through the list. Destination Linux. I'd be curious to know why Noah left Destination Linux. I really want to know that, but I don't think anybody's ever said. There's Linux Out Loud is another good one. I think that's like the same network. And then there's actually another group that does Linux user groups online called the Linux LUG Cast. I have them in my thing to listen. I've never actually listened to them, so there's a couple that'd be interesting to listen to. And then there's one called Tech Jam. They don't release very often. They've only done it a couple times this year, so that I don't know how often they release. But anyways, those are my podcast ones. Go ahead.
It's not directly Linux content, but it's related to Linux. It's another podcast. Like, give a shout out to the Jack Resider with Dark Side Diaries. He always interviews hackers and whatnot, and it doesn't give you exact details, but there's breadcrumbs, and you can research the topics and do some reading if you want to learn. Good stories.
Good stuff. Hunter, go ahead.
I just like any Linux YouTuber, man. I mean, just Linux. I just like it all.
Well, definitely all like them all. Like it all. Hip Dad, go ahead.
Level 1 Tech. They
Yeah.
go pretty in. He goes in depth with KVMs and servers and NASA's and his motherboard reviews and stuff. You learn something from that too, and he uses Linux predominantly. So, yeah, I would say he's up there.
Okay, Drew.
I mentioned this guy. We actually did a podcast on YouTubers, and I thought we were gonna tear it up at some point. But there's a guy named Christian Lempa, and I don't know if you guys know who he is, but you should. Okay, because this guy has such good content. He's well into the self-hosting. He talks about Zima boards, and he's all about in note taking. He used to run like Obsidian, a lot of Obsidian content, but I think he's actually switched to Notion fairly recently. So he's interested in a lot of the things that I'm interested in, and so Christian Lempa is an outstanding YouTuber.
Yeah, very much so. Just along those lines, Radal, and I think there's one called DB Tech or something like that does a lot of home labbing stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, those guys, and then Jeff Geerling. seriously, like that guy is like the nerdest of nerds, and I aspire to such. Promise Unix, go ahead. You gotta unmute yourself.
It's not up there.
There you go.
I think we should go back and everybody should go back and look at Nova Spirits. He got me into self-hosting on my Raspberry Pi way back in the day. He passed away from cancer not too long ago, but I did notice his videos are still up. Great stuff if you're into Docker crap. You know, I'm a Nix guy, so I don't really like Docker, but great. There's still great material out there, and I actually still go back and use it to help me set up some of my stuff that I'm doing now. So just a little shout out to, you know, somebody that's not here now, but certainly helped us out in the past.
Just another one along those lines. Old Tech Bloke, also no longer with us, but I think his stuff is still up as well. And he's another one that he tested distros and applications and stuff. So yeah, a lot of it will be out of date, but you can't be a Linuxer and not at least figure out who he was. Someone mentioned Veronica Explains. She does a lot of vintage stuff and stuff like that. Her stuff is very good as well. So just the last question before we wrap this up, just to go around the horn that I want to ask you guys. So if you were in need of tech support today and you were looking for a more general place to ask it, not a specific place, where would you go to get your support from? What was, and I'm looking for specific places like Ask Ubuntu or whatever, you know. So if you had a question and it was more general, like you didn't know who to ask, where would you go? Who wants to go first?
I would go to Discord.
Discord, okay. Like you have a specific server in mind?
Your server, actually.
All
I
right.
don't know.
Cool. Anybody else? Got a specific favorite place that they go ask all their questions? For me, I always go to the OpenSUSE place first, but that's just because I'm assuming that's an OpenSUSE problem. It's usually Zipper's problem. Drew, go ahead.
You know, I think what sorry, not D-Dubs, but what HipDad said about actually, we've kind of created this nice community and within Discord and so on. And you can instant message people that we've talked to in the past. And I end up usually using, like, if I have a question about a specific thing. Now you're talking about general, but we kind of know where our friends are like strong in a specific topic. And so we kind of like reach out to those people a lot more than just a general. So we kind of pick and choose where we're using as resources. But, you know, if it's a general thing, I'd hate to open up this can of worms again, Matt. So I won't.
Yeah, Drew's like, I host my own chat bot, you know, like I got this.
I do. And thank you.
I have a tab open telling me how to do that. I'm going to do it eventually, but I'm a little worried that my electricity bill is going to double if I decide to turn it on and actually use it. So I don't know. Promise Unix, go ahead.
I'm not going to lie. I've been using Nix forever. Really wanted to get into it a little bit deeper. My biggest friends right now, and I got to tell you right now, Claude and ChatGPT. If I'm having an issue, if I get an error, I just copy paste that error in there, and it just tells me what the hell I'm doing wrong. I don't ask it how to build something because it always leads me down the wrong rabbit hole. But once I have something and I think I'm close, and I start getting errors, I ask it what the error means, and then I can fix it myself. And I don't have time to wait for 48 hours for a Reddit or a Discord or something to get answered. Well, Discord, I don't do Discord because it's too fast for me. It's like why I don't do X. I don't know how people do X or Twitter or whatever it's called. It just flies by. You know? Mastodon, it flies by. Like, how did anybody see my fucking question? Like it. Anyway, at least Reddit, my question's out there. But I'm not gonna lie. LLMs, man. I just, the way they are today. What can I say? You know, I think they're here to stay. I'll get out of your way.
Yeah. Arch Penguin, go ahead.
Yeah, so a little short story here. I search the internet first, obviously. Go through all the different possibilities. Ask D-Dubs even. D-Dubs isn't no.
D-Dubs usually is the first.
He's a really good
He's like the
resource,
first guy
man.
you
He's
go
helped me
to.
so much, dude. You don't even know. But here's the thing. When the next day I was not even on that thing anymore, I just happened to be looking in the manual, and there it was. It was in the manual. I figured out how to, because I was trying to get LACT to work and on NixOS. And if you're ever wondering, it's right under AMD in the GPU section of the manual on NixOS. And that's the problem, though, right? I think a lot of people said this earlier. You get all these results that are outdated. And you were speaking about how Discord moves fast. Well, so does NixOS, right? They change all the time too. And so definitely check your manual, because if I had done that to begin with, I wouldn't have had to search for so long.
Man pages, they exist. I don't really remember that they exist, but they do exist.
Well, NixOS actually comes with an actual manual that you can read.
I'm not talking about NixOS today. Go ahead.
Well, I said in the beginning of this call, in the chat, whatever, I would turn to IRC. I kind of like to justify that because I definitely do some Googling and go to wikis first. But usually my questions are so like very, very specific that it's not going to be on a Google. It might be in a forum somewhere, or maybe a Reddit post will have it. Again, an issue tracker in GitHub. And if it's not something like that, I'm usually just going straight to IRC.
Hunter?
I actually know another good YouTuber on Linux, Brody Robinson. He's a good Linux YouTuber as well. He does everything about Linux. Yeah.
You need a new phone stand, my man. That thing keeps tipping over. D-Dubs, go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting. In parallel what Drew was saying, we cultivate, our friends, and we use them when we can. But it is interesting lately. I find myself using like various AI engines, when I run into trouble. Now, a lot of it is because I'm using Nix, and that's just, you know, I was going to say a money pit, but it's it's just a dark hole in which nothing escapes. But it's still a fun trip. So I find myself using AI more and more for the same reason as Promise was talking about, where you have an error and it can help you find where your mistake is. And that's where unfortunately I find myself spending a lot of time lately.
Unfortunately, I'm the same. I've gotten to the point now where I'm the most impatient person in the world when it comes to needing help for something. Like, I want to fix this thing now while I'm still working on it, not tomorrow when I've forgotten that it exists. And forums are great. Like, I've met a lot of cool people on forums. I have some friends that work as moderators on forums. They're lovely people. And I've met some moderators that are not so lovely people. But you go on there and you ask a question, and if you're lucky, in a couple hours you have have an answer. But by that time, I've moved on. Like, I've gone back to work. I've literally given up, or I've found another place to get the answer. And even Discord's not fast enough for me. I need it now. I mean, I sound like I sound like the worst type of millennial, but it's the truth. Like, I want it now, and AI provides that for me most of the time now. Milo in the chat's going to tell you that AI gives you false results 30% of the time. I'm willing to pay that 30% tax if I have to for the speed that it gives me right answers sometimes. And
Well, there's another side of that too, though. Is often it will lead you to the answer, or even to a better question. You know, and I often find that if it gave me the wrong answer, I still learn something from that. You know, even if it's the next time I get asked the same, next time I get the same answer, I've literally had to say, "We've already done that. It didn't work," and force it to go back and refactor. So, yes, it's. But for me, AI is become a learning tool. That's and it has surprised me, and the differences between the engines have surprised me. In their, some are good for some things, some are good for others. Grok has impressed me a lot. Sonay has impressed me a lot lately. The Chat GPT has never impressed me.
actually,
4 is supposed to be better, but I can't access it because I'm not going to pay.
that's the kind of question I wanted to ask you specifically, D-Dubs. Is there a bot out there that you'd be willing to actually spend your money on?
Lately, I've been tempted with Grok, and I've been tempted with Sonay, only because Sonay you could get an awful lot for not a lot per month. It's funny because it goes from free to like $12 a month or something, and then you get this like ridiculously high end at $100 a month. It's kind of interesting. But even the perplexity that Drew was talking about, that's like, it starts at like $20 a month for their paid tier. That's a lot. But again, some of them I've been tempted. I almost wish sometimes, well, I know in some you could buy credits. I've been tempted to do that, just to not buy a monthly plan, but just spend a few bucks, when I really, really need the deep answer. But so far, my stuff hasn't been. I've only gotten one warning from Grok that I was approaching the free limit, and then you just have to take a break. So, pretty reasonable so far.
Yeah.
But again, I've been very, very surprised at the differences between the engines.
There is one that I pay for, but I've been looking at other ones because it is. I mean, almost all of them are pretty pricey, and $20 a month is quite expensive. But I've actually found it kind of worth it to pay for the one that I pay for, and I'm not going to say which one it is because I'll just get a bunch of hate and shit. Every time I mention AI in the channel, it's just like, fine, it's Chat GPT. I do pay for the conversion 4 because it works pretty well, and it's up to date. Like, you can ask it the weather; it will tell you the weather right now, so it is doing the actual searches. But
no, you're right. Like, again, and I qualified that every time. I mean, GPT 4 I've heard is very good.
Yeah,
but
the one that this still based off from like 6 months ago, or whatever, is harder to rely on, right? And I found myself almost constantly running up against that limit. That's why I decided, I was like, obviously I'm using this thing often enough. It's probably worth the money, but that was really before I started doing research into the other ones. But Promise Unix, you had your hand raised. Did you decide to change your mind?
I was just because I'd seen that. Thanks for having me here, by the way, guys. I watch all the time, but I'm not usually home from work. But
glad to be here.
I saw the I think the tagline was something about coming to Linux. Where do you get answers? And what kind of gets me, I'm a deep-blooded Nix user, but I don't mind people that use Arch. I have an issue with people that use Bluefin just because I hear about it all the time when I watch videos on YouTube. But it's no. Do you not think maybe the confusion for people from Windows coming to Linux is the plethora of distributions they have to choose from, and they think that they have to choose one, and they think that they have to choose a desktop, and they have to choose one. I think what I'm getting at is whether you choose Ubuntu or Fedora or Arch or Nix or any of the flavors out there, They all do the same freaking thing. I mean, in the world of flat packs and in the world of Docker, any distribution can pretty much do whatever the hell you want it to do. So pick one that suits your style. Pick a desk. It's a fucking desktop, whether it's Plasma, GNOME, Cinnamon, everybody. Cinnamon. They're all the same. Like, are they not, more or less? Like, whether you punch in app or DPKG or whatever the hell else is out there. Like, I think what happens is people are so afraid to jump into Linux because they're afraid that once they pick something, they're stuck with it. And in all honesty, Linux itself is just the operating system, and it's all this stuff that we put on top of it. And does it really matter how I mean, Drew's going to answer this question in about 3 years when Debian catches up to this question. But no, I just,
Damn.
like I think maybe that's an issue with people in Windows coming to Linux, is that there's so much choice, there's so much to deal with, and we all fight about it, right? I don't care what you're using. Like, if I'm going to show you how to set up a RRS reader, like fresh RRS in your home lab, I can show you how to Nixify it, but I can also show you how to slam it in a Docker, and that Docker image is going to work no matter what you're running. And I think that there's so much infighting amongst the distributions and the desktop environments and everything, which is all fun, right? But people coming to this and they go into a Reddit forum and they say, oh my God, no, I chose Arch because it's the hardest. It's not the hardest. Bite me. It used to be. It's not anymore. And I'm not saying, Nick, I don't think anything's hard anymore to get into in today's age. It's 2025. I don't think that this has to look like Windows means anything. And I think people should just be able to go on to Reddit and say, hey, how do I get Discord working in Linux? And somebody should be able to say, what distro are you using? Debian. Okay, apt-get whatever the fuck. And anyway, that's I don't know why I just came up with that, but it was like I was listening to this and I was like going like, there's too much choice in Linux.
Use Windows, right? GNOME, go ahead.
I have to kind of agree with that and say, the banter that you see back and forth, like, oh, my distro is better, or this package is better, use this terminal, whatever, use this TTY. As a geek, that's kind of just like playful banter back and forth. We're kind of just poking fun at each other. But as a person who's not in that circle, it's like a holy, like, whoa, this is toxic. Like, oh my God. But we're just kind of having fun. Most of the time.
Use OpenSUSE. It's the best distro. I was being 100% serious by that. You should use
Gen 2 all the way.
And who says he doesn't have a sense of humor?
Well, I have a sticker. I have to promote the distro, right? I mean, literally, I spent the money. I got to get my money worth. All right. I think, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. We've been going for 2 hours. We actually made the whole 2 hours this week, which is good. Last few of them we've cut short, but that's good. So, for those of you who watched us live, we thank you so very much. We do a Linux user group twice a month, and we do one on the second Tuesday of every month. That's at 11:15 a.m. Eastern Time. And you can find announcements for that on the Discord and on Mastodon or on the YouTube channel if you need reminders of that. Our second one is the light one, which is this one. It's the fourth Thursday of the month. It's at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time. We usually go for about an hour and a half to 2 hours or so. You can, of course, join us. We are open to everyone who has a microphone or doesn't have a microphone. You can join us if you don't have one. You just won't be able to talk if you don't have a microphone. Or you can watch us live. We do stream it on the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/LinuxCast, by the way. If you haven't subscribed, liked, and all of that stuff, please do so. It'd really help the channel. And I think that's it. Oh, actually, there is one change of plans for next month. There will not be an early lug next month. I am out of town that day. I will open up the Discord voice chat on that day, so if anybody wants to jump in there and have their own little lug without me, I'm perfectly happy with that. But I am out of town that day, so I actually have to go see the people that I work with, which I'm not looking by the way. It's not at all. I am very much a person who lives in his home office. But anyways, that is going to be very much fun. Anyway, so just one lug next month, but in July we'll pick back up with the double lugs. So for those of you who watch live, thanks so very much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Peace out, everybody.